Formula One returns to Interlagos once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his third championship here in 2012, and just 4 years later, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. It's an unusual anti-clockwise race here in Interlagos, where the Sao Paulo locals are packed into the grandstands at each of the 15 corners around this classic 2.7-mile circuit. Two very fast sections bookend the famous and highly technical Sector 2, where getting a good run out of Junsao into one of the two DRS zones will be key to any overtaking prospects today. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Hughes, Piastri, Lando Norris, and Russell, Antonelli, Verstappen, Gasly, and Lance Stroll, Ocon, Albon, Gabriel Bortoleto and Sainz, Tsunoda, Behrman, Jack Doohan and Isaac Hadjar, Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson rounds off the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And alongside me today, former Formula One driver and former world champion too. See, told you I'd give you a big intro. Anthony Davidson, hello. And let's talk momentum with this driver. What a sprint it was. They start at 0 once again for today, but with a huge amount of confidence, surely. Well, they'll definitely be glad that there's not a sprint race today. Let's face it, the sprint couldn't have gone much worse, but what we're looking for today is a reaction. Interlagos, always one of my favourite weekends of the season. Love Brazil, adore this track.
Absolutely spot on, Crofty. I wish you could pick this circuit up and place it, copy-pasted on multiple different locations around the planet, because it is sensational to watch, sensational to drive, and for all these drivers here in Brazil, it's a great time to get stuck into this Interlagos circuit. It's an anti-clockwise track, lots of important corners to get right, and it's a track where you can make or lose an awful lot of lap time.
Mic on.
Fala amigos, como estão? Tudo certo? Gente, então voltando aqui com 50%, 36 longas voltas para a nossa corrida após uma excelente P3 no qualifying. Fiz alguns ajustes no carro, mudei ali um pouco sobre a suspensão, mudei também as pressões dos pneus, para a gente ter um pouco menos de desgaste. A gente está literalmente com um devorador de borracha, né? Não sei o que houve mesmo depois de uma atualização de chassi. O carro começou a gastar pneu como nunca gastava antes. Era um carro que antes a gente tinha uma zona mais confortável para pilotar. Agora a gente está vendo aí duas paradas na casa de 11 voltas abaixo já de 50% de pneu de vida útil ali deles, na verdade, né? E inclusive 13 voltas o pneu duro também está nessa estimativa. Isso ali a gente está vendo mais ou menos uma simulação, né? Nossa previsão do tempo ali dizia que a gente ia ter sol, sem nuvens nem nada. Agora dá até um medo de mudar isso daí e começar a chover, porque como eu falei, são 36 voltas e São Paulo sempre é uma surpresa. Estamos largando de P3, vamos ver o que a gente consegue fazer. Inclusive, esse aqui é o nosso primeiro vídeo em Quad HD. Eu sei que para o YouTube vai subir em 1080, né? Mas a gente conseguiu aqui, eu consegui arrumar aqui algumas configurações para deixar o jogo ainda mais bonito, né? Simular um Quad HD aqui para nós, mesmo usando DLSS com qualidade, o jogo responde muito bem. O jogo ficou até mais bonito, a qualidade dos reflexos, né? De tudo a gente tá bem legal ali pra gente continuar com a nossa série aí na próxima temporada. Então, hoje aí falta então Brasil, Las Vegas, Qatar e Abu Dhabi. Acredito eu que a gente não vai conseguir buscar o Hamilton ali como eles pedem no duelo ali de rivais, né? Até porque a Ferrari fez uma dobradinha aí. Vamos ver se a gente consegue passar eles aí na primeira ou na segunda curva, bem na largada. Temos que largar bem se a gente quiser dar um show aí em São Paulo. Gente, fiquem com a corrida. Agradeço a todos vocês que acompanharam até aqui. A gente vai continuar com a série com a Audi. Eu já estou com os mods também da Audi ali, F1, são mods, óbvio, conceito de pintura, tudo, mas vai ser a nossa equipe em 2026, não vamos mudar de equipe, tá? Até pensei em ir para Racing Bulls, mas não vai ter essa mudança. Então fiquem com a corrida, espero que vocês gostem muito, vejo vocês aí no final.
Mic off.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Okay, be careful with the front wing, you've taken some minor damage. DRS enabled. That was the fastest lap of the race so far. tyre wear for now. Keep taking care of them. Okay mate, we're seeing a lot of tyre wear in the data. Please focus on looking after your tyres. Seeing a lot of tyre deg now. We've got a new strategy if you want to take a look at it. approaching the pit window and you're going to be on mediums. afraid, but listen, don't worry about it. It's a long way to go, so let's just focus until the end. Window's open, so let's box this lap, box this lap. Okay, pit in this lap, and remember the speed limit. We'll be penalised if we exceed it. Keep that in mind as you approach. Okay, 2 stops left now, 2 stops. Okay, let's go now, come on. That was a fantastic stop, faster than we were expecting. Okay, 1 stop to go, just 1 stop left in this strategy. Coming in for his stop now. Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 4.8 seconds. No need to worry about the tyre condition for now, everything's looking good. clear track in front of us, so let's make best use of it and make the next lap a quick one. You got this. And gap to the car in front, 10.0 seconds. Gasly's ahead of you. Yeah, really good job on hitting that target, mate. Nice work. Still a long way to go, though. Okay, gap ahead, 8.4 seconds. They're on old mediums. Okay, they've done 15 laps on those tyres. We think they've got one more stop. Time last lap, 1 minute, 14.7. That's Gasly ahead. Gasly's ahead of you. They've just entered the pits. And the time last lap, 1:17.4. They're on old mediums. Their tyres are 16 laps old. We think they've got one more stop. Gap to your teammate behind, 15.9 seconds. Some information on Doohan. Okay, it looks like the problem's terminal. They're retiring the car. Okay, gap to the car in front, 6.1 seconds. The track is clear, green flag. window now, and you're going to be on hards next time. Behind's tyres are in a much better condition than yours. We'll need to keep an eye on their times. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 19.3 seconds. Should be feeling the effects of some tyre wear soon, so stay on your toes. We're going to box this lap and push hard on the in-lap. Box! Okay, go! Perfect job on the turn in there, mate. Looks like a nice stop time. We're happy with that one. That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. Okay, mate, that's Alonso behind. It is critical for our race that we keep them behind, please. Okay, gap to the car ahead, 1.8 seconds. Gabriel coming in for his stop now. Time to the car behind. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 7.4 seconds. Okay, that's Antonelli just ahead. Push hard. Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 7.1 seconds. Okay, they're on old hard tyres. Their tyres are 9 laps old. Time last lap, 1 minute 13.5. You're gaining by 2 seconds a lap. Amazing. Stuff, mate. You hit the target well there. Nice one. There's a long way to go in this race, though, so keep your head down. our gap on the car behind by around a second a lap. So gap to the car ahead, 3.1 seconds. Tyre condition still looking good. Gap to the car in front, 8.0 seconds. in front, but we need to look after the tyres. We won't be making another pit stop. Okay, gap ahead, 9.3 seconds. Okay, they're on old hard tyres. Their tyres are 18 laps old. And the time last lap, 1:13.2. We're falling back by around 1.2 seconds a lap. Come on. Gap to your teammate behind, 23.2 seconds. And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
And here he comes. It's all go, go, go for Lando Norris as he takes the checkered flag and wins.
You always look back at a race like this and think, if I had just made that mistake there or locked up here, there would have been contact. And every one of those overtakes is a moment where you have to absolutely nail it, perfect it, and that's exactly what they're able to do today. Great stuff indeed.
Well, it's been a long wait for many of our drivers, but the wait is always worth it. Bring them out to the awaiting crowd. It's time for our podium celebrations. He raises the trophy over his head. Lando Norris, head and shoulders above the rest today. After an event like that, who knows what the sport has in store for us next time out? Be sure to join us once again as we continue to bring you all the excitement of Formula One.
Mic on.
Bom, pessoal, então não deu, infelizmente, saímos de P3, terminamos aí em oitavo, né? Mas infelizmente não deu, porque a gente teve que parar duas vezes. A gente tava com um ritmo muito bom, mas o pneu tava sendo desgastado de uma forma absurda. E a gente não conseguiu fazer muito aí até o final, né? Infelizmente deu pra pegar mais uma posição só e por aí foi. O P1 ali que a gente tava segurando por muito tempo não tava se resolvendo, porque quando o carro perdia bastante da aderência, a gente começava a perder tempo, inclusive o Leclerc e o Lando Norris estavam chegando muito próximos. Então todo mundo foi para a estratégia de uma parada, eu fui para a estratégia de duas, mas infelizmente ainda tomamos 15 segundos aí do primeiro colocado. Não teve muito o que fazer, a gente estava andando muito mais ali que o Russell e o Gasly, né, sempre na casa do 1.11. Mas é isso. Eu espero que vocês tenham gostado. Não foi muito bem o que eu esperava. Achava que a gente ia conseguir manter um P3. Achava que todo mundo ia para uma estratégia de duas paradas. Mas não foi o que aconteceu. 50% de corrida mostra as deficiências do nosso carro de fato, né? Essa questão de economizar pneu ali não estava muito legal. Pelo jeito, não só nós, mas também o Bortoleto ali teve que parar duas vezes. O Ocon, né, o Sainz ali. Essas equipes aí estão tendo um problema bem grande com o desgaste de pneu. Mas então é isso, espero que vocês tenham gostado. Se inscrevam aí se quiserem, deixem um like e até a próxima. Valeu!
Mic off.